Woo! Hey, we got less than a minute and a half for today's message. And woo, yeah, look at this. If you're following me regularly, you know I usually come on at 11 o'clock on Friday, but it's going to be 12:30, man, because once I start putting together the message, more came to me. And you know what? This is a special edition. And I think that I just want to slow down a bit and really acknowledge the beauty of the history right now that I'm experiencing, that we're experiencing, but I'm experiencing it because I was a front row seat part of it, and that was the Million Man March back in 1995. So so I want to make a statement about that, and I just made a special one. So it's going to be a little longer than my usual goal of having 8 to 12, less than 12 minutes on a Friday message. So this may be a little longer. So strap yourself in, or watch a little bit, come back, watch a little bit more. Okay, I'm really excited about this. So we're getting ready to get rolling here. It's about to be 12:30, and as you come in, let me know where you're watching in from, and thank you. God bless you. All right. Okay, dokie. Here we go, and it is almost 12:30. I still wait to the moment. See, yeah. So you got less than 10 seconds, probably. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, boom, here we go. All right. And first of all, welcome. Goodness to you. And you know why? You know why I say goodness? Because I don't know whether you're watching morning, afternoon, or evening. But isn't it great to have good in front of your salutation? Welcome to Gift Friday. Gift Friday is the online sharing, okay, of my poetic messages. Now, I created it because so often we hear people say TGIF, thank God it's Friday. But I say, what a Lord does Friday have to that person that took their last breath on Thursday? So instead, I use what I learned through Psalm 92:2, and that is, it is good to proclaim your unfailing love in the morning, your faithfulness in the evening. Thus, instead of TGIF, thank God it's Friday, I use TGIT, thank God it's today. And then TGIT, thank God it's tonight. Hey, to lay down your head, go to sleep, wake up and get a chance to do it all again tomorrow. That's what I'm thanking God for. And so I add there, and therefore another scripture referencing that's Matthew 34:6. 6 and 34. So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. TGIT. Thank God it's tonight. Today's trouble is enough for today. TGIT. Thank God it's today, because darkness always precedes the light. All right. And so let's do a little math. First, we'll do some subtraction. First, we're looking at another use for TGIF, and that is trusting God is free. Think about what it costs to receive the greatest gift of every day. We hear so many people say every time on this side of the ground is a good one. Well, this is a good one. Trusting God is free. The gift of waking up doesn't cost you a dime. Now we'll do the math, and we'll subtract that T from the front of TGIF and put it on the and add it to the end, and we get GIFT. And what we should really be thanking God for every day is the gift of today, because God is for today. And Gift Friday is the online sharing of one of my poetic messages, poems, or poetic positive messages, where I'll read it here and share it online. And then I'll drop the poems or the messages in the feed on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can have your own colorful keepsake copy. Now, today's poems this week's poems, by the way, are connected to yesterday's Truth Thursday broadcast, which marked the 30th anniversary of the Million Man March, in full alignment. You see, because it was on Thursday, October 16th, 1995, that they had the Million Man March. Thus, I broadcasted yesterday a special edition called Still Mad, where MAD stood for MAAD, making a daily difference. And then I added a reminder to make sure that you make it a positive difference. And I read 2 of 3 poems that were inspired by the march from my book, I Found Out I'm Dying, a celebration of life. Today's special edition will contain 2 unpublished poems, also inspired by the march. They're called More BETTA or WORSA. And the other one is called The Millions That Watched. And they addressed how in making a positive difference, we have to remember to take a stand of resolve in knowing that similar to how Black history is being attacked right now, the narrative is always sometimes, the narrative is sometimes aimed at discouraging you. Here are the headlines that inspired my first poem. March for Black men. Black men draw thousands to the U.S. Capitol. Draw thousands to the U.S. Capitol. And then this one, U.S. Park Service estimated the crowd at 400,000, while organizers of the march said 2 million. And then in another one, and then they said that same thing, but then they said, either way, it was the biggest civil rights demonstration in U.S. history. See, so instead of calling it million, first of all, it was given, remember the headline, the headlines are to discourage. They dropped it down to 400,000. And then they said, hey, but don't worry about it. It was still the biggest. So that's the appeasement. You got to watch out for that stuff. So that's why those inspired these next two poems. Now, before I read the poems, I'm going to show you today's AI definition of the resolve that I'm encouraging. And after I read them, I'll show some pictures of the refreshing trip up memory lane that I'm experiencing and refreshing today. First, AI says true resolve means having unwavering determination and steadfast commitment to a purpose, intent, or goal, especially when facing challenges. It implies a firm and resolute decision to see something through to the end. It's determination and commitment. It's the quality of being purposefully determined and committed, not just in the initial decision, but in the sustained effort to achieve it. Grit and resolve. True resolve includes the ability to overcome setbacks and difficulties with resilience rather than being discouraged. And firmness of purpose. It represents a fixed and unwavering state of purpose or opinion. An example in AI, if a person has a goal to run a marathon, true resolve is not just exciting to run it, but the determination to train consistently, even when tired, and see the race through to the finish line. The Million Man March was 30 years ago. Where are we today? Are we still seeing it through to the finish line? And that's what's addressed in this first poem called More BETTA or WORSA, where they said 400,000 were in the crowd. More BETTA or WORSA. 400,000. At least they used to give us credit for doing things half-assed. Now we're in the minority at our own gathering. 800,000? I would have caught my breath, hunched my shoulders like I just dropped a plate of food, and closed my eyes, wishing to disappear before it hit. 900,000? I would have snapped my fingers, shook my head, and thought of how many of the 827,440 imprisoned brothers might have come, and my nephews and their friends who couldn't come. I would have felt the stadium crowd's empathy as my half-court shot hit the front of the rim. 950,000? I'd have written down the names of elementary and junior high school classmates, guys I partied with at discos, played ball with, shot pool, and even acted a fool with. But 400,000? All I can do is open my mouth with my head cocked to the side, like a curious eagle who just heard a pin drop and asked the walls, what? More BETTA, more WORSA. Now, this next one I dedicated to the students at Robeson High School in Chicago in 1996. By the way, More BETTA or WORSA was written in 1995. So in 1996, I wrote, the millions that watched. So think again about those 400,000 that they said were there. So this takes that up. The millions that watched. There were no entry gates, no Gallup poll, and they couldn't even give us half a star. Yet we were on every TV set, each radio, and countless minds near or far. We wandered, we profiled, we smiled, laughed, and cheered. We welcomed the faces around us, blessed them, and showed them that we care. Germany, Canada, Mother Africa, DC, they came in multitudes by land, air, or sea. Philly, the Big Apple, Chi-Town, Motown, take your pick, they were all there. I have yet to count the people who watched at home from their chair. Somewhere a baby was delivered, his peaceful cries celebrated on earth. On the other side of town, there was death and mourning. One for one is what each life is worth. France, London, Jamaica, St. Croix, take your pick, they were all there. I have yet to count the people who watched at home from their chair. Some marched in their hearts at work or in school. Still others protested, considered us fools. They talked about us at lunchtime, missed seeing us at the stores. Lincoln Park, Hyde Park, Lakeshore Drive, Robeson High. Take your pick, they were all there. And don't forget to count the people who watched at home from their chair. The millions that watched. So I'm going to give you those two poems. You can think about them. But here's some of my memories. First, here's the bumper sticker that I was able to buy, and I put it on my car. And I kept it on my car until I bought more than once. I put one in my photo album, but I kept it on my car until I ended up selling that car or getting rid of it. I don't know what happened. But that's the bumper sticker. Then this is a picture of Kurt Tyler, and he and I were driving down from Chicago. We decided the day before, by the way, to go. So that's on Thursday, October 15th, that we're driving down. And there's some other cars behind Kurt that we took pictures of as we were driving down. And, everybody was honking and waving at each other. Then down there at the bottom is Skip Waddell, one of my spiritual brothers who lives in DC. And I had called him, say, look, Skip, I need a place to stay. And so I stayed with Skip. Kurt stayed with one of his friends. And then so Skip and I took the train downtown, and there's some other people who were on the train with us. And then we hooked up. And back then we didn't have cell phones and pagers. How did we do that? But Kurt and I, we picked the spot where we're going to meet, and we met there at the time, and we were able to hook up and enjoy the march together. Okay. And then here's the march slogan, which a group was carrying. I think they were from Philadelphia. Men are responsible to cultivate hope. That was just a group that was marching with their slogan. And then see the green line? Just shows you a couple of our white brothers that were there. I see, again, it was the Million Man March, and it was hosted by Blacks, but it was inclusive because men are responsible to cultivate hope. Okay. And then here on your left, you see a father and son. Father brought his son, and they're pointing, waving at the camera. And then on your right, we prayed. So there's a couple of pictures of all of us getting down on one knee and praying for, I don't remember whether it was at the beginning or during or at the end, but we sure definitely did some praying there. It was great. And then here's my favorite moment. Now, these men have turned around and are walking back to make room for the crowd gathered in front of them. Everyone turned around. See, that it was getting so crowded that from the stage, they said, look, would y'all, if you're pushing people and the barricades are getting, compromised, would y'all please turn around and make some room? Now, I was way in the back, so you really can't tell. That's why I love this poem, this picture, because what actually happened, everybody from the back to the front, the people way back who had plenty of room, like I got room here in my studio right now, turned around and walked backwards a few steps or so, or yards, or whatever we did, so that there would be less congestion up front. And so that's us walking backwards. And then you see one guy who hasn't turned around yet. That's the arrow that's pointing down. So if you were just watching this picture, you would have no idea. So that's why it's a moment that I will never forget, because it was hilarious. I'm like, we could just stand here. We're not pressing up against everyone, but that's how peaceful it was. That's how refreshing it was. That was the resolve that we all had, that knowing we were there, making a difference. So that was my favorite moment. And then, again, the bumper sticker that I want to close out with. And it's just, again, my resolve, how proud I was, my declaration that I was one of 1 million, not of 400,000. I was one of 1 million of the men that marched that day. I'm proud to say that I was proud then, and I'm proud now. And I have my resolve is to remember to be making a positive difference on a daily basis. I have not forgotten what we stood for that day and what we stood for now. And people, I've seen posts where people say, well, I don't know if it's made a difference. Y'all, everything, history is about making a difference. The direction that the history takes us is a result of what happened. It always makes a difference. What we have to do, that's why you have to control the narrative, because you have to decide, was it a positive, what's a negative or positive difference? Which side are you on? Please. Those of you who may not be of African American descent or Black, however we want to call it, there's people's history they're trying to erase it right now. You can't let that happen. Even the fact that history is trying to be erased is history making. But let's stick together, y'all. Let's stick together, because history begins with HIS. It's his story. That's how I still like to think about it. So thank you. Thank you for enjoying Gift Friday, GIFT. God is for today. I'll drop copies of the poems in the thread. And if you like a copy of my signature book, I Found That I'm Dying, containing the other Million Man March poems, please follow the QR code, which is now up top, and take that to my store, where you can also sign up for my free Golden Brick Road fun letter and other free stuff to inspire you and help you with your resolve. You can also purchase my limited supply of Life t-shirts. They come in blue and white, Tees shirts. And I thank you to those who purchased one or more, by the way, and really helped me through a financial storm. That was one of the reasons I came up with Life with that t-shirts. And remember, you can make a positive difference in a life today, starting with yours, because God is for today. Shout out to my brother Lorenzo Clemens. Love, blessings, and hugs to all. That means whoever's watching as you watch the video. Goodness to you, and love, blessings, and hugs to you. We're all in this together. Let's make sure that we come out of it smelling bad. Smelling. Oh, I didn't have it prepared. We're all in it together. Let's be great. Look. Have a wonderful gift weekend and stay safe, y'all. Be smart about the decisions you make. And Lorenzo, great, a declaration. As a man, my purpose is knowledgeable and clear. My explanation is guided by God. My explanation, guided by God, has allowed me to be confident, caring, yet strong enough and sensitive enough to care for you and me. A high priest would say, it is written, it is ordained, it is in order. I'm going to let it close with that prayer. Thank you. God bless you, and continue to be the gift that you are. Thanks, Lorenzo. My brother. Peace.